Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Then check out Deal to Heal Tees. With our inspirational tees, you're sure to find something to inspire you. That's dealtohealtees.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealtees.com. Again, that's dealtohealtees.com. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you'll enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with your host, Ernest James. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Ernest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, my mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with their problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill their purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share our podcast on all of your social media platforms, and follow us on all of our social media platforms, including our new podcast channel on YouTube, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network, where you can not only find the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, but you also can find the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. And on that podcast, my guests and I, who are usually girl dads, like myself, talk about the daddy-daughter relationships. And occasionally we have a daughter to come through and talk about her relationship with her father. And we do that podcast in order to combat the narrative of the absent father and the fatherless daughter. So make sure you go to our YouTube channel, the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network, in order to tune in to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, as well as the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure you guys go there and check us out on that YouTube channel. Also, make sure that you guys check us out for our product of the week. And so our product of the week this week can be found at our website, Deal to Heal Tees, which is Deal, the number 2, healtees.com. And our product of the week is our Deal, Heal, Fulfill cursive tee that we have. Of course, dealhealfulfill.org is our website. So this tee, and I'm describing it for those who are not looking at it on YouTube, but it's a black tee with the words Deal, Heal, and Fulfill in color and also in cursive. So you guys can go to Deal to Heal Tees, that's Deal, the number 2, healtees.com, in order to get your t-shirt, which is our product of the week for this week. So we're going to jump right in it today. Just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Miss Latrea. How you doing?
I am well. How are you doing?
I am good. I am good. First of all, let me say thank you for being here because you could have been doing anything else with anyone else, but you're here with me, and I definitely appreciate it. So we gonna jump right into this thing. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to my audience, and tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Okay, well, for those that don't know me, my name is Coach Latrea Russ. Most people know me as Coach Latrea. I live in Wilmington, North Carolina. I have an 18-year-old daughter. I am also a preschool teacher. I teach 3 and 4-year-olds. Let's see what else. I'm an 8-time published author as well as a motivational speaker. I am a life coach. I work with the disabled population. I work with children that have multiple disabilities as well as their parents, helping them kind of guide them through the journey known as disability. Let's see what else. What else? Oh, yeah, I am disabled too, by the way. I forgot to mention that part. I am disabled. I am visually impaired and hearing impaired. I have a rare genetic syndrome called Pfeiffer syndrome, and it's spelled Pfiffer. And I'm going to explain a little bit about what Pfeiffer syndrome is because it's not one of those, I guess, well-known disabilities or what have
Mhm.
you. And it's so funny because I went to the doctor or the emergency room. I'm sorry, the emergency room the other day. Well, not the other day, last week. And when I told them about the disability, they went to pulling out medical books and, and asking me how to spell it and Googling it and everything. So clearly, it's not one of those disabilities that is very familiar. So let me go ahead and explain a little bit about what it is.
Mhm.
So Pfeiffer syndrome is in the category of what we would consider craniofacial deformities. And what a craniofacial deformity is, it's a deformity that affects your facial area. It affects your skull. It affects the shape of your head. It affects your eyes. It affects just your whole facial area. Um,
Mhm.
there are a number of syndromes that fall under what would be considered a craniofacial deformity. I happen to have Pfeiffer syndrome. And what that means is when I was born, my skull was not completely completed, if you will. Meaning
Mhm.
I had some areas in my skull where I did not have any bone.
Okay.
So it was like I had a half a skull, if you will, to make it make sense. I had like a half a skull. Um and what little bit of skull that I did have was crushing my brain. So when I was born, my skull was crushing my brain. Um, I had my first operation when I was 2 months old. I've had over 35, 45 operations throughout the course of my life. Um, I had I was given the life expectancy of 9. As you all can see, I am well past 9.
Mhm.
The second life expectancy I was given was 35. I will be 46 in February. So you can't tell me God ain't good. And
Amen.
I want to stick that in there. Sometimes we put all our faith into what man says. Oh, he's a doctor and he knows and he went to school for this and this, that, and the third. And yeah, he did go to school for that. And he did go to school to study those things, but he doesn't have the final say.
Right. Love it. Love it. Love it. So I want to go back a little bit to one of the things you said. So you said you're a coach and you coach persons with disabilities also.
Uh-huh. My company, more than my disability, has kind of gone through a number of changes from when I
Hmm.
started. I started more than my disabilities back in 2014. And in the beginning, it was discovering your abilities, is what it used to be called. but it's gone through a lot of different changes, if you will. I started out helping or assisting people with disabilities with independent living skills, like those people that are disabled and they want to live on their own and they want to learn basic living skills like how to wash clothes,
Mhm.
how to cook basic meals, how to do the things that able-bodied people sometimes take for granted, like
True.
like washing clothes. That's a simple task for most able-bodied people. Most able-bodied people can wash clothes. Most able-bodied people understand the concept of sorting whites from darks and putting the clothes in the washing machine and so on and so forth. But you have some people with disabilities that it requires some training for them to learn that concept. Doesn't mean they can't learn it. It just means it requires some training. I'll give you an example. When you first learned, who taught you how to write a check? How did you learn to write a check?
Actually, at that time, they were still teaching it in school. So we had
Okay.
a class
Okay. Okay.
called home economics,
Oh,
but they
okay.
don't even they
Okay.
don't even
Okay.
do that no more.
Well, the reason I asked you that is because for some people with disabilities, they have a class called life skills. And
Mhm,
in a life skills class, they teach you how to write a check, how to open a checking account, how to do those things that most able bodied people don't have to go to school to learn. They
mhm.
just, I don't know how they learn, but they don't have to, it's not a class that they have to go
Right.
to learn. But for some disabled people, it is. For some disabled people, they got to go to school to learn how to do these things. So that's what the sector I was working in when I first started my business. And then from that point on, I started teaching. I became a preschool teacher. And from the time I started up until now, every child that I had, not every child, but every class I've had one or two children in that class that had a disability, that had some type of a challenge or some type of a learning curve or something.
Mhm.
So I was able to reach them in a way that other teachers were not. So I'm like, this might be something I can tap into.
Mhm.
And parents as well. Parents would come and say, okay, well, I can't get them to do this at home, but you can get them to do this here. How do you get them to do it? And I can't get them to do it. And so I began working with the parents as well as working with the children. So that's why how I kind of changed my coaching around a little bit.
I love it. I love it, and I definitely connect with what you're saying. For maybe a little bit over 10 years, um, I recently stopped doing it, but over the like 10 years, I've been a um, healthcare aid to persons with disabilities for over 10 years. And so I know by working hand in hand with them in their home in some cases, or even at the centers, the day centers, sometime with those, helping with those life skills and things of that nature. So definitely understand even what you were saying, like the things that we take for granted, of being able to wash your own clothes and things of that nature. Definitely being and like I said, working in the home with some of my clients, I've been able to assist them in, even washing their own clothes and washing dishes and things of that nature. That again, a lot of us able-bodied, should we say, for lack of better terms, have taken for granted over the years. And so definitely appreciate you and thank you for the work that you do. So let's go back a little bit into your own personal story. you know um Definitely, I understand that because of your own disability, that puts you in a special place. But sometimes even with our own the things that we go through personally, there are some of us who may go through something, but they still don't want to teach nobody else or help nobody else that may be going through that same thing. So what makes you different, and what was that initial thing that to you to say, okay, I know I'm dealing with this, but now I'm going to also help others that's dealing with it as well?
Because I remember being a kid and I remember being a young adult and I remember how much I struggled because I didn't have anybody that went before me, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Hmm.
I didn't have anybody that went before me and said, "This is how you navigate through this." And that it's funny you asked me that because that was always the struggle in the beginning of my business because nobody went before me. Nobody had done, and I'm not saying this to my own horn, but nobody
Hmm.
has done what I'm trying to do at this point. So I can remember being a kid and being a young adult and not seeing anybody that looked like me, not seeing anybody that looked like me and was being successful, not seeing anybody that looked like me that was going to college and making things happen in their lives and doing what they needed to do. And not to say that there wasn't any out there, I
Hmm.
just did not have the privilege of seeing any that looked like me.
Right.
So and then as I got older and got into this field a little more, I started meeting little girls that look like me. Like right now, I know two young ladies, and they're like, what? One is about 10 and one is about 2. And she looks just like I did when I was little. And it blew my mind because when I was a kid, due to my facial difference, nobody looked like me. Like I
Hmm.
never saw anybody that looked like me. So when I started going out and seeing other people that looked like me, I was thinking to myself, okay, you know what? That's going to be my goal. My goal is going to be to help them navigate through this because I didn't have anybody to navigate, to help me navigate through it. So I didn't have anybody to help me navigate through the bullying. I didn't have anybody to help me navigate through the stairs. I didn't have anybody to help me navigate through being teased and taunted because of the way I looked. I didn't have anybody to navigate me through how to develop my self esteem, how to raise my self esteem, how to be the best person that I could be in spite of. I didn't have anybody to show me how to do that. So I made it my mission to be the one to show other people that you might not have the same disability that I have. You may not have the same facial difference that I have, but I can still show you how to maneuver through the stares, the bullying, the teasing, the taunting, everything that comes with having a disability.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to touch into that a little bit because definitely just hearing you mention it, I can tell that there was, even at that time, especially being a child, some painful situations. You know what I mean, and some painful and some heartache that came from the bullying and things of that nature. How did you allow that, or how did you begin to use that, even to push you forward, even to this purpose that you have now? Because I always say that there's always some experiences that we have, and we live through it. But how are you now taking those same experiences and using it to help you with your purpose?
Well, what I've done is I've taken those experiences and I've removed the negativity from them. And I've used them in a positive way. I've used them to push me to my purpose. I've used them to push me. Like for example, one example in particular, I had a young lady when I was in the ninth grade. We were in English class in the ninth grade, and she turned around and she looked at me and she prefaced it with, "I don't mean no harm." Now, just want to put this out there. Nine times
Mhm.
out of 10, if somebody starts a sentence with, "I don't mean no harm," there's
Mhm.
typically going to come some harm behind the next sentence. But
Right.
just
Yep.
saying. So, with that being said, she said, "I mean no harm. But if I had a child that looked like you, I would throw it in the trash can. Now, that statement haunted me, oh my gosh, well into my 30s. I'm not
Mm,
ashamed to say that either. It haunted me well into my 30s. But I learned to take what I need from it, use what I need from it, not to sit there in it, not to let it fester, but take what I need and use it as my push. And that's what
mm,
I tell people. I actually have a workshop that I teach about how to take your pain and use it to your purpose. And the three things that I talk about is how you acknowledge. First, you have to acknowledge the pain,
mhm,
and you can't get through something until you acknowledge that it hurts. You can't get through something painful until you acknowledge that it hurts. And a lot of times people don't want to acknowledge pain because it hurts. Well, it's supposed to hurt. It's pain. So
right.
it wouldn't hurt if it wasn't pain. So you acknowledge pain. You acknowledge the experience hurt. You acknowledge that what you went through hurt. Once you acknowledge it and sit in it for a second, not your whole life. You're not going to stay there. You want to
Mhm.
sit there and feel and go through the process of feeling those emotions. Once you go through the process of feeling those emotions, then you're going to take what you need from it. Once you take what you need from that experience, that painful experience, because even though it's a painful experience, it's going to provide you something that you need. So you take what you need from that painful experience and you use that experience or what you took from it as your propeller to push you, as your gas. You put it in your car, and that is your gas. That is the gas that's going to push you forward.
Yes, yes, I love it. I love it. One of the things that you talk about, and I'm sure even in this journey from pain to purpose, that there had to be some healing that had to take place on your part, right? And
Mhm.
definitely I'm sure that even some of the persons that you work with, that is usually part of where they come to you at in that healing space, still on that journey that you've been through. So how important is the healing part of it, for yourself first of all, but then also for those who you are coaching, that they even kind of start there, with the healing from the
Yes,
from the
yes,
inside.
yes. For me, I can't help nobody if I'm not healed. I can't be of service to anybody. Excuse me. I can't be of service to anybody if I'm not healed. If I'm not healed, if I'm not made whole, if no, not made whole, but if I'm not healed in that area, I can't help anybody else. That's like trying to teach somebody how to swim and you don't know how to swim. You
Mhm.
can't teach somebody something that you haven't learned. You can't teach somebody how to do something that you don't know how to do. You both can't learn at the same time. The teacher
Right.
can't be learning at the same time the student's learning. One of y'all got one of y'all got to already know what you're doing.
Right.
So, in order for me to be able to successfully help people, there were some areas that I had to heal in. I had to heal from that comment. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. Oh, my chair did something crazy. Okay, sorry about that. I had to heal from that comment. I had to not allow one comment to govern the rest of my life. I had to
Mhm.
decide that I was not going to let one person and one comment have control over the rest of my life. I just wasn't going to do it. It was too much living that I had to do. God put me on this earth to do too much to allow one person and their comment to stop me.
Mhm.
So once I realized that and once I figured that out, then it got to a point where I'm like, okay, God, you gave me this story. You gave me this experience for a reason. There's a reason that I had this experience. There's a reason that I had this story. And I had to seek God to find out what was it. And then when I did that, it was like, it's not for me. It's not for me. It's for your viewers. It's for the people that's going to see this. It's for the people that's going to hear this. It's for the many people that I've touched in my speaking. It's for them. Nothing, absolutely nothing that I have gone through has anything to do with me. It had nothing to do with me. Yeah, I went through it. I was the sacrificial lamb that went through it,
Mhm.
but I went through it so that I can come out of it and show you how to get through it. See, it's always going to be harder. It's harder to create a door versus walking through a door.
Mhm.
When you have to create a door, you're starting from scratch. You don't got nothing. You just got a piece of whatever, and you got to create something out of that. But when you're walking through a door, you just turn the knob, open the door, and walk through. God called me to create a door versus walking through a door because there was no door for me to walk through. I didn't
Mhm.
have a door to walk through. I had to create my own door. I had to create my own path. And that's what makes my business so hard sometimes because I'm creating it as I go, but I'm creating it for other people. I'm creating it so other people don't have to. I'm creating it so other people don't have to struggle the way that I did. But when it comes to healing for my client, that is the very first thing to talk about. And most of the time, what that looks like, oh, I don't like this chair. Most of the time, what that looks like is accepting your disability. And I think that is the hardest thing that I have worked with people with is learning to accept your disability. Because I ain't even gonna lie to you. That was something I struggled with for a long time. For a long time. And now I see why I struggle with the things that I struggled with. Because now I get to help the people that's coming to me get through what I had to get through. And yeah, I mean that right there is the hardest piece of the puzzle to fit is learning
Mhm.
to accept that this is just what it is. It's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing, it's just what it is. And you have to make the best of what you got. You
Mhm.
have to learn to make the best of. No, you might not be able to do everything. No, you can't. I'm sorry. You have a disability. Yes, you do. But it's not the end of the world. It's not
Mhm.
a death sentence. Your life doesn't stop. Your world don't stop. You have a disability. So you learn how to take that disability and make it work for you. You learn how to take that disability and spin it around and make it work for your life.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. I love it. So, man, speaking of doors, you said you created a door. It seems like you created it and kicked it open at the same time, especially with your business. So, how long have you been doing the speaking side of it to as far as being a motivational speaker?
Oh gosh. Hmm. It started okay. I started speaking at my church. I want to say it was 2012, 13. I want to say. And I want to give a shout out to my former First Lady Rashida Potts, of Rashida Potts Ministries. She had a play called In Her Shoes. And I don't know if she's still doing it or not because I've moved, so I don't know if she's still doing it or not. But it's a phenomenal play. It's a monologue. And the basis or premise of the monologue is to give your testimony. But
Mhm.
you give your testimony from the perspective of in her shoes. Like, walking in someone else's shoes, you're walking through their testimony.
Mhm.
So I gave my testimony as what it was like in my shoes. And that is actually where my speaking career started. And it was so crazy because when she first started doing it, I wanted to be in the background. I wanted to help with the lighting. I wanted to help with the
Mhm.
mechanics of it all. I
Right.
was not out to get up there and do that. I'm like, get somebody else to do it, okay? I'm not doing that. But she wouldn't take no for an answer. She just kept pushing and pushing, pushing and pushing and pushing. And I think when I did it the first time, that is when my healing started.
Mhm.
That is when my real healing started. Having the ability to get up on stage and display the emotion and the feelings that I was going through in the moment. But I was having those feelings and emotions, like being in the hospital during Christmas time, being in the hospital on your birthday, being rolled in the operating room at 9, 10 years old, not knowing if you're gonna make it out. You know, going in surgery at 10 o'clock in the morning, coming out of surgery at 2 o'clock in the morning the next morning. Losing so much blood that they don't know if you're gonna make it or not. You know, having going back to those going back to those experiences and reliving those emotions allowed me to heal from those experiences. And not to mention, and we haven't even talked about this, but not to mention the experiences that I had with my home life. My parents were addicted to drugs. My mom was addicted to crack, and my dad was an alcoholic. So as you can guess, that made for a tumultuous life household. Um, so going through that on top of dealing with a disability, I ended up in the foster care system at 12 years old. You know, I bounced around from one abusive foster home to the another abusive foster home for 6 years. I was finally adopted at 16. When I was adopted at 16, I was adopted into the home of a child molester.
Mhm.
So just being able to get on stage and release all of that, I mean, that was where my healing started at. That is where my healing started at, and that is where my speaking career started at. But I also want to give a shout out to Sean Fair of Sean Fair Consulting. I tried out for the Leadership Experience Tour back in 2000. Let me see, had to be 18, 19. And I tried out for that speaking tour. That's one of the biggest speaking tours that you can be on. And I tried out for it. And I was like, I'm not going to get on this tour. I'm not going to make this tour. Because you know how you try out for something and
Mhm.
you're like, yeah, I didn't do so hot on that. That wasn't my most shining moment. But nonetheless, he called me back and I got on the tour. And I traveled, and that was what brought my speaking to the forefront. That is what brought my speaking to the masses, to the wider population.
Mhm.
I did that tour twice. I want to say no, I did that twice. I want to say I did it twice. Yeah, so that's actually what put me on the map. The Sean Fair Leadership Experience Tour.
So on that tour, how many dates did you guys have that you spoke
Well,
on?
the way it worked out is it's a 3-day process. So you get there on a Wednesday, and then when you get there on a Wednesday, Thursday you do interviews, you do pictures, you do um, just a whole day filled of just interviews and photo ops and professional photos and practicing and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
Um, and then the same thing on Friday. Saturday is the big day. There are usually anywhere between 15 to 25 speakers on this tour. And both times I opened it. So
Mhm.
I was the first one both times. I didn't want to be the first one, but managed to find myself as the first one to open it. So yeah.
Okay, nice, nice, nice. And so, not only are you a speaker, but you're also an author,
Yes,
eight-time author.
yes, yes.
And this last book that you wrote, um, you even mentioned about even doing a part two, which we definitely would be interested in hearing that. But let's talk about your current book. I mean, you can talk about all of them.
Okay,
Give
well,
us a little bit about the ones prior, and then we'll get into this last project that you've written.
okay. The first book I remember writing was, and it's crazy because I've been writing since I was 8, 9 years old. Writing has been a way to escape my life. Because
Mhm.
when you write, you can be anything you want to be. You could be
Right.
tall, you could be short, you could be thin, you could be fat, whatever you want to be. That's what you can be. So that was my way of creating my own fantasy world outside of my reality. So the first book I wrote was called Green Tea and Other Forms of Meditation, which I have a funny story about that title because I can close my eyes and go back to the day God gave me that title. I was in the hospital. I was about 8, 9 years old. I was sitting in the hospital bed, and he just, I mean, I don't know if he does it to you guys, but he just kind of dropped it in my spirit. Green tea and other forms of meditation. Now, I'm 9. I'm like, what am I going to do with this? What am I supposed to be doing with this? But okay. So, um, when I started working on my first project, that was the title I got, Green Tea and Other Forms of Meditation. I have 3 workbooks that I did that go along with workshops that I do. It's called Removing the Emotional Barriers. One is Removing the Emotional Barriers of Life. That's for able bodied people. And then I
Mhm.
have Removing the Emotional Barriers of Disability. That's for my disabled population. So there are 2 different workshops.
Mhm.
One's about life and one's about disability. So I have a set of workbooks that go along with that.
Mhm.
Um, and then let's see, I have a prayer book called Intimate Conversations with God. And this book came about when I was a Sunday school teacher. I was a Sunday school teacher for about 10, 11 years, maybe longer than that. And I remember the one thing we used to pray. That's my thing. I don't do nothing. I don't go nowhere. I don't enter nothing without praying. That's just been me. So I know we start class praying. So I would have them stand up, hold hands, and ask one of them to lead me in prayer. And it would always give me the same thing. Well, Sister Latrea, what am I supposed to say? I'm like, what do you mean? What are you supposed to say? How do you pray? What do you say when you pray? What do you say when you talk to God? How do you pray? How do you talk? How do you pray? And I would tell them, prayer is nothing but a conversation between you and God. In its simplest form, that is
Mhm.
all prayer is. A conversation with you and God. You talking to God like you're talking to your mom and daddy. You're talking to God like you're talking to your friend. I said, now I'm not saying disrespect God. That's not what I'm saying.
Mhm.
But what
Mhm.
I'm saying is sometimes we make prayer more complicated than it has to be.
Right.
So that's how I came up with the title of that book, Intimate Conversations with God. In the book, I have some prayers that I have my personal prayers that I prayed to God during a time that I was going through some things. I was going through depression. I was going through a bad marriage. I was going through a lot of different things during that time. And I did all I knew to do was write. That's all I knew to do was write. And every day for 2 years straight, I journaled to God. I journaled to God. Dear God, dear God, dear God, dear God, dear God. And then after I journaled to him, I prayed. So that's what that book is. Now, at the end of the 2 year mark, I just thought it was just gonna be a journal. You know how you write in the journal or whatnot. I had no idea of publishing this. This was not even something I wanted to do. It was just a journal I was gonna throw in the back of my closet. I had no plans on publishing this. But as you say, you tell God your plans, he'll laugh at you.
Mhm.
So he was like, "No, we're gonna go ahead and publish this." I'm like, yeah, God, I hadn't planned on publishing this. This wasn't supposed to be a book. This was just me and you talking. And then he showed me how the prayers in the book weren't for me; they were for somebody else. See, if you look at it, the theme here always goes back to somebody else. It always goes back to somebody else. It's never about me. It's never, and that's what I tell people. It's never about you. It might feel like it is in the moment because you're going through it, but it's never about you. It's always about who is going to benefit from your pain, who is going to benefit from what you're going through. So God showed me that the prayers that I prayed is going to keep somebody from taking their own life the way it kept me from taking my life. My most recent book, as we talked about off air, was the one I was the most hard headed about. I did not want to write this book. This most recent book is not what it yeah, it's not what it looks like. I didn't want to write it because it forced me to open myself up.
Mhm.
It forced me to talk about some things openly what I had never talked about.
Right.
As it relates to what I went through as a kid living in a home with a parent addicted to drugs. What I went through as a kid living in a home with a parent that was addicted to alcohol. What that looked like, what that felt like. What was it like being homeless as a kid? You know, what is it like being homeless and walking the streets as a kid? What does that look like? What does that feel like? Um, and what it did was essentially it gave a voice to those experiences. Again, it goes back to somebody else because if it was up to me, I would have, I would have wrote it. But I understand that somebody needed it.
Mhm.
Somebody needed that book. Somebody needed to hear those experiences. Somebody needed to hear how I got through those experiences.
All right, all right. And the book is called "It's Not What It Looks Like," and it is on Amazon.
Yes.
We will make sure that we put the link to the book in the descriptions. Make sure you guys go check out our descriptions because we always have great information in the descriptions, including things about the podcast, things of resources. If you want to ever thought about starting your own podcast, there's information there in the descriptions. So make sure you always go check out the descriptions to the podcast because there's also always great information there. So we will make sure that we put the links to "It's Not What It Looks Like." The book will be there in our description as far as the social media handles and things of that nature. So Latrea, I definitely appreciate you. I appreciate the work that you do, and I appreciate you sharing, more of yourself with the community the community at large, definitely those who are dealing with disabilities and, the mindset and the hard posture that they have and helping them through that, but also the work that you do with able bodies, for those who may not uh, have a disability, even to be able to use your knowledge and your wisdom to still be able to help them on their journey. So I definitely appreciate you and the work that you do. I want you to have the last word, right? And I want you to leave us with a word of advice, word of inspiration, however you feel. To leave us with, also with your social media handles and things of that nature. So I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that. To my listeners, thank you guys for tuning in once again to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure that you guys go and check me out. Check out, I say check me out. Check me out at my website, dealhealfulfill.org. Again, that's dealhealfulfill.org. Um, because as you guys know, our mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with their problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill their purpose. So when you go there, you can find out more about me personally, about me as a podcaster, as a speaker, as an author, and even to be able to book me to come out and talk to your school or your organization. So again, go to dealhealfulfill.org in order to find more about me and the things that I have going on. Also, you can go to ebooksbyejames.com to check out some of the ebooks that I've written that is available there. We had talked about a little earlier about our partner, our sister podcast, which is the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. And we talk about my ebook that I wrote called The Core Four, which is the 4 core values that every daughter should get from her father. That ebook can be found at ebooksbyejames.com. Again, we talk about that on the podcast, the Girl Dad Discussions. And so you can go to ebooksbyejames.com to check that ebook out, as well as other ebooks that I have, including From Males to Men, and also Forgiving Me, the 4 Steps to Self-Forgiveness is also there. So make sure you guys go to ebooksbyejames.com in order to check out all the ebooks that we have available. Also, we talked about our product of the week, which was one of our inspirational teas. So we have more inspirational teas that you can find at our website, Deal to Heal Teas. That's Deal, the number 2, healteas.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. Make sure you guys go there to check out the inspirational teas that we have, as well as our podcast merch, which is our t-shirts with our podcast logos on it. There's one with the Girl Dad Discussions podcast logo, as well as one with the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast logo. Make sure you guys go again to Deal to Heal Teas. That's Deal, the number 2, healteas.com in order to check that out. And last but not least, over the last few years, I've been able to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops every other month. Talking about everything regarding forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, forgiveness of the world, and really going through, the process of what is forgiveness and how does it affect us as a people. And so it's a free virtual workshop. Again, it's every other month that we have it. So whenever you're listening to this podcast episode, either one just passed or there's one coming up. So you can go to theforgivenessmission.com in order to check that out, or go to Eventbrite and look up Forgiveness Workshop sponsored by the Forgiveness Mission in order to sign up for that free virtual workshop. It is absolutely free, but the information is priceless. So you guys want to go to theforgivenessmission.com in order to sign up for that free virtual workshop. All right. Again, Coach Latrea, I thank you so very much for being on. Thank you for sharing your story with us. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
Okay, well, I want to say you can catch me on Facebook at my name, Latrea Anita Russ. That's my personal page. I do a lot of stuff there. I have another page, Speaker Latrea. I have my business page, what is it, More Than My Disability. Then I have on TikTok, it's Speaker Latrea Russ. And then I also have Coach Latrea. TikTok is, not TikTok, I'm sorry. Instagram, it is Coach Latrea 79. Those are all of my Instagram handles where I can be reached. You can send me an email at coachlatrea@gmail.com. You can go to my website, www.coachlatrea.net. You can go there. You can purchase all of my books. You can also purchase, I have some other merchandise there as well for you to purchase. You can join the mailing list. I have some wonderful things coming up. next year that I'm getting ready to launch next year, connected to the mailing list that you would only be able to get if you are on the mailing list. So I encourage you to go and connect with me on my mailing list. There's a lot of perks to being on my mailing list. So yeah, the final word I have is it's not what it looks like. Yeah, it's not what it looks like. A lot of times people get caught up in what they see with their carnal eyes, and they forget that there's somebody or higher source working in the background. So we see things with our carnal eyes, and it looks like destruction. It looks like a disarray. It looks like everything is falling down around you, but it's not. It might look like that for the time being. I'll give you that. I'm not going to discredit your feelings and say that it's not. That's not what it is, because that's what it could be for you right now.
Mhm.
But if that's what it is, that's not the way it's always going to be. That I can say. It's not going to always be that way. It's not going to be the walls feel like they're caving in on you. It's not going to be everything's crashing around you. It's not always going to be you're not going to know your right from your left. It's not always going to be like that. It's going to come a time where the sun is going to shine again. The clouds are going to move and the sun is going to shine again. And I know that kind of sounds a little cliche-ish when I say it, but it's the truth. I mean, I've been in some situations in my life where I'm like, Lord, I, I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, I don't know. But I remember God always telling me, hold on, I got you. And sometimes that's all you got to hold on to is a word. It's a word. So no, it's not what it looks like.
All
That's
right.
it.
All right. We can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.